I'm Sam Helfrich. I'm the stage director of Orpheus in the Underworld at Virginia Opera. I've been coming to do productions here for 5 seasons now. I think this is my 4th production in 5 seasons. I started here with another Orpheus opera, interestingly enough. It was the Philip Glass Orphée, which is a very different take on the Orpheus myth than this opera is. So it's funny to come back to Orpheus again several years later. I've known a lot of the cast members, either known or worked with a lot of the cast members previously. Funnily enough, Troy Cook, who's singing Jupiter, is someone I met when we were both just starting out at Glimmerglass Opera 17 years ago. Meredith Lustig, who's singing the role of Eurydice, was when she was very, very young, I think maybe only 22 or 23 years old, she was in the chorus of a production of Le Contorie that I did at Juilliard. And I've worked with Maggie, who's singing Public Opinion here at Virginia Opera. And I've worked with Javier before. I've worked with Dan Curran before. We did a show together at Pittsburgh Opera. So I've worked with almost everyone in the cast before, and for me it's always better because they sort of know how you work, you know how they work. We sort of know each other and don't have to reestablish that. So it's really a pleasure to have all of this cast here. It's interesting to think about because I spent many years with the Philip Glass Orphée. I did it in a whole bunch of different theaters, and what that piece is a retelling, a sort of modern adaptation of the Orpheus myth, with some comic elements, but not inherently a comedy. And he uses the myth as a platform for exploring themes of marriage and social constructs. And what we have here is something slightly different because what Offenbach has done with Orpheus in the Underworld is parody the myth. So it's actually a satire of the myth itself, but also the Gluck opera version of the myth, which is Orphée and Eurydice. So he's gone a little bit further in the direction of satire and comedy, and comedy is fun to play with, but in the same way that we were exploring themes of marriage and midlife crisis and the role of the artist in society in the Philip Glass piece that I did, here, even though it's much more comical, a lot of the themes are actually the same. The approach you take when you're directing comedy, I think it's fundamentally the same, but I think a slight difference is that you want to find the comedy. So it's not just in the text or in the dialogue. This is a piece that has a lot of dialogue and singing in it. It goes back and forth. So it's not just in funny jokes that are planted in the dialogue, but also in the ways people move on stage that are funny. And hopefully it's not just absurd funny. I think absurd means it's for no reason, whereas funny means it's something that's recognizable, something that a person does or says, or a way they look at somebody that we laugh at because it's funny, but it also has meaning. I've assembled the same design team that I had as a team for Orphée, the other Orphée. So we had the opportunity, because there's 4 of us, a set designer, a costume designer, a lighting designer, and myself. We had the opportunity to go really deeply into the myth again and to explore it really differently because the piece is different. And what's interesting is that thinking about the previous Orphée, which was very much an exploration of marriage through the eyes of a man who is in a midlife crisis as an artist and as a husband, this is not only a comedy, but also an exploration of a bad marriage through the eyes of the woman who wants to get out of the marriage. So they're very different, and it was fun to think about all of the reversals that entails and all of the ways that we could sort of flip all of our thinking around and see everything through her eyes. I would say the show is very funny. It's got amazing music, really funny but also beautiful tunes that are tappable and hummable, and it presents situations that are very human, as I said before, and also it all ends as if all problems could be wiped away by a great party. The opera ends with a really great party, and it's sort of like all these dramas and tragedies come together in hell, and everyone explodes into this big party, and there's a big can dance, and it's a hoot.